And so, Aaron had no idea that we were going back there. And then, Rachel, we had gotten rings. We have his formal ring and his party ring. So
Love that.
but we both had a ring, and
So
we did
cute.
the whole thing where we also got down on our knees on the street.
I don't think many people have seen two girls get down on their knees in front of a
This
guy.
is a very unique scenario.
Yup.
Hey everybody, we are here with an amazing guest episode this week. We have Triad and True with us. So 3 people, thus Triad. Rachael, one of the Triad members, and I met a year and a half ago or so on Bumble BFF when I was new to town. And I think you guys were pretty new to town too.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Aaron and Casey are her partners. And so they have at Triad and True is their social handle. They're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook. Go follow them for some pretty fun and unique content. But I would love if you guys could kind of introduce yourselves a little bit and just kind of tell us a little bit about your relationship structure to kind of set the tone for today's episode.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Should I start?
Yeah.
Good. We'll take you back a couple of decades. So, Aaron, but it won't be a long story.
Okay.
Aaron and I actually met when we were 18 in college and followed sort of the typical relationship escalator. Got married, thought we were going to have kids, live life together monogamously. That all sort of started to change, partly because of my bisexuality and realizing that he's a wonderful, lovely man and he's still just a man. So it doesn't help in the female arena. And we got into the swinging lifestyle as an opportunity to sort of explore that and achieve some of my own personal desires. But of course, more for Aaron was always fun and lovely as well. And at the time had not known anything about polyamory or the idea that you can actually build more deep, meaningful connections with people outside of these casual sort of one-off experiences, and had met some pretty cool triads and quads and other polycules along our journey. And
really
started to talk and say, what if we actually connected with a single person that would want to be part of an equitable triad dynamic, and we could still have a monogamous sort of life, doing the stability, the commitment, living together, but get to know someone who's also female. And so hence we put together our Bumble dating profile and so it's a match made on Bumble, we say.
Yeah.
At least from the couple's perspective, joining together with someone. Yes, the other version of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to hear like your journey too, Casey.
Yeah. So I, was a single woman. I actually was kind of born and raised in the Bible Belt part of the country.
Oh, wow.
I'm from Missouri. And so, I definitely always thought that I was going to also grow up, get married to a man, have kids, the whole shebang. And then, I was in some long-term relationships and things just didn't feel great. And after one particularly stupid breakup, I was like, I'm going to look for ladies on the dating apps. At that point, I was 25. I had never dated women. I still, considered myself straight. And I ended up actually connecting with a couple and was exploring my own bisexuality and, kind of going through that journey. And then kind of fell into and found the, the swinging type of community. And I was interested in that because, I knew I was comfortable with men. I was getting comfortable with women. And then I actually kind of fell into my first triad type of relationship. And it was, we were together for like 6 months and it was not great. It ended very badly. And it's like you look back on it and you did all the things that you're really not supposed to do. There was no research. There was no equitable type of considerations when I was in that relationship. And so it ended poorly. And I was like, I'm never doing this again. Like never doing poly. Oh yeah. I was like, not happening ever again. And then, I kind of went back for a while and was doing just dating kind of single people, kind of back to the monogamy track. And then after a while, I obviously came across Rachael and Aaron's profile, also on Bumble. Just saying, Bumble, like, you can reach out. We're all success stories here.
Yeah, please sponsor us.
Bumble BFF, Bumble for relationships, just saying.
That's right.
But I saw Rachael and Aaron's profile, and irresistible.
They were clearly irresistible.
Yeah,
yes.
obviously. But it was, they were really clear in their intentions of what they were looking for. And I did some self-reflection on that and was like, it wasn't like, I feel like I could be successful in this type of relationship, even though it didn't work out the first time. And so, we matched and we connected and we had lots of long conversations about things and yeah, it was great. So here we are.
Well, we were living out of the country at the time when we met her.
Yeah.
Which is true. Okay. So tell us that part, Aaron, because I know some of this backstory, but I think people would be like very intrigued with how this all came together.
Yeah, it was a little different. So Rachel and I lived in Puerto Vallarta at the time. We've been down to Mexico for a few years and just living a happy life and, being at the beach and such. And we were back in Colorado visiting family when we matched with Casey. So we were in town for a few months and kind of had to figure out what we were going to do.
Yeah, well, at that time, we were only back in Colorado for about 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, this is what's so wild to me. Like, you didn't live there. You're visiting for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But it was a very life-changing 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, within 12 days, we said, well, if we're going to make this relationship work, we can't do it internationally. And we were remote, we were mobile. And so we packed everything up, invited us into...
Casey, what did you do to them?
Okay, and I will say, at the time, I remember being like, listen, I think I'm pretty great, but I don't know if I'm like move countries great.
Right, after 12 days.
It worked out. And that was actually a funny story too, because, we knew it was very like new relationship energy. We were all very excited about things. And they had come down so we lived in Colorado at the time. I lived in Colorado Springs. They were visiting in Denver. So we were about an hour and a half apart.
Oh, wow.
Even from that standard. And they ended up coming down to Colorado Springs for the weekend. And we were at this little coffee shop. And I remember I was like, I think I'm just going to ask them to move in with me and it's going to be great. And then we're at this coffee shop. I go to the bathroom to work up my courage to ask them to move in with me. And I come out and they have these goofy grins. And I was like, oh, what's up? And Rachel said, we were talking and I think we should probably move in with you.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh. So yes,
wow.
I did invite them to move in to my house, but it was kind of after being told, I think we should move into your house.
Because forget the triad thing, but just to meet someone and feel that strongly so quickly, what was it about each other that just really clicked to the point that you were willing to take that leap?
I think it's a great question. I think looking back on it, probably a couple of things. First and foremost, values. I mean, from the moment we connected on Bumble, we had taken it offline. We connected on Facebook. She's a previous journalist and reporter, so she had stalked the shit out of us.
I had done all the background checks.
I am a really good internet stalker as well. Totally get it.
And we did our due diligence as best as we could on her, but we got into the deep questions within hours of connecting.
Okay.
Core values right away.
Values.
Right. And I feel like, Rachel, we should add that you are also a therapist who focuses on relationships and especially poly relationships now. And I know from being a therapist, we just don't do surfacey stuff.
Right. No. And we were so intentional about what we were looking for, either you're in or you're out. This is going to be something we're all really looking for, and it's going to be alignment or we're not, because we had 20 years of a really good, awesome relationship that I wasn't willing to just sort of compromise or settle for something. It wasn't that important.
Right.
But when we realized how quickly we aligned on all of these core values and then got together, and then there was sexual chemistry and there was a connection all ways. They connected on things that I had never really connected with Aaron on.
Oh, interesting.
He didn't. I mean, it was just such a blend of interests and personality types that felt good from the get-go, all through ways that I think we also knew how hard this was. And people say they are looking for years and years and years. And for us to feel like something kind of fell in our laps. I'm also a big manifestation person, and I think we put it out there and the universe aligned us. But yeah.
That is so cool.
This legit pressure, though. If it was going to work, we just sort of knew we had to make a commitment, and we were leaving because under this just pretense.
And it was interesting too, because it was like, okay, we're going to move countries, and they ended up going back to Mexico for a couple months just to wrap things up.
Okay.
And then they moved in like November, December of 2019.
Okay.
And then we're very new in our living situation and whatever.
Yeah.
And we got very close very quickly because we obviously had to quarantine.
Oh yes. Oh my God.
So that was like 3 months essentially after they had moved in, and then it's like the border shut down, so even if we broke up, like they couldn't go back to Mexico.
Like you could not like write this. Like it's just it is a wild story on so many levels. Because it's like just moving in with someone who you've met pretty recently. It's like there's a lot to kind of like figure out in terms of like habits and routines. And then I don't even know like how big of a space you had, Casey. Like did that fit like 2 extra adults?
It was a 1 person and 1 dog home. So it was like 1,000 square feet townhome.
Oh my gosh.
2 bedroom. So it was and then obviously like we were all working from home at that time too.
Oh my God.
And so that I was in an office, and so Rachael and Aaron were working from home in separate places in the house, and then we all were very shoved in together. So
okay.
Yeah, this is I have conversations with clients all the time, either why can't you or how are you going to make it happen? You can go with all the reasons why this wouldn't have worked out, or we said, how are we going to make it work? We bought a new house. That was number 1.
Okay.
So we moved into a bigger
That seems like a wise choice.
That was important. Yeah. And that was something too that like even going into that experience as a triad, like we weren't sure what that was going to look like as far as like 3 owners of a house.
Yeah.
Because we had obviously, they'd only ever bought houses with the 2 of them. And it was funny, those first mortgage papers, it's like, so yeah, you sign here and you sign here, and then you could just like kind of like fit your signature down here at the bottom.
They're like, we don't know what to do with you.
Yeah, truly. So,
and none of the letters from the mortgage company has room for 3 people. So it's either like me and Casey or Casey and Rachael, or like they just can't figure it out.
Right. Right. Yeah, which is interesting. And I know, Rachael, you and I have talked about just like when you're filling out forms or like emergency contacts, like things are just really designed for like monogamous couples in this world. So what is that like, and how does that sort of impact you guys?
I think we have fun with it. Like, so when we bought our new house, we had to call the water company to switch over the account. So I'm on the phone and I have it on speakerphone. May have been Friday afternoon during happy hour or whatever, but
maybe.
Yeah. So they're like, okay, who would you like to put on the account? So Rachael, I give my information. What's her relationship spouse or partner? I think I said. And they're like, would you like to put anyone else on the account? Yes, Casey, and get all the information. What's your relationship spouse? Like,
yeah, like partner. And
they got quiet. Like,
it's funny too, because in those situations, I feel like people just don't ask questions. They're like,
really?
Okay. Or it's like, partner, and they just assume we're like business partners who all.
Oh, interesting.
I think that's what the way that one went.
They went back to the recording to listen to it after that.
It is.
That's cool.
I mean, we make light of it. We understand that we're just ahead of times when it comes to society's sort of rules, expectations, norms, whatever it may be. And it is another indication, though, that there's an imbalance. And as much as we try to create equity or try to make it, there's things that are inherently stopping us. And we do the best that we can to try to mix it up or create, if she's my emergency contact on some medical form and he might be on another.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Aaron co-owns one of the cars with me. They own the other car.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
taxes are fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, and that's the thing. I obviously file as single and they file jointly. So but then we own the house together, 2 houses together. So it's like, our accountant, the first conversation we had with him about all this was.
Yeah, like trying to find an accountant would be interesting.
Oh, yeah. He's great. He
Okay,
just
good. So you
takes it
found a good
all
one.
and he figures it out.
Cool. That's all you need. So let's talk a little bit about couples privilege. Rachel, I know that's something you're like hyper aware of and have talked a lot about, I think publicly as well. But one of the questions, so I mentioned to this before we hit record, but I posted on Instagram, I'm going to be interviewing this amazing triad relationship structure. What questions you guys have? And like within an hour, like 8 questions came in. I was like, oh, okay, wow. People are really excited about this. But one of the things someone asked was about kind of like, is there sort of like a main couple and like an extra person, or is it like an equal triad? And so I know the answer to this, obviously, but how do you answer that? And like, how have you worked towards your structure?
Sure. Should I start? Yeah, this was something getting into this dynamic we had read a lot about unicorn hunting and how to do triads. Well, so much fear around doing triads wrong, and there's a lot out there.
I could see that
not to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I also felt very strongly that there is a way that you could probably make this done right,
Mm-hmm.
and we had seen several examples, and so I didn't get too invested in all the people telling me not to do it, but took really good I guess takeaways or information on how to think that we were doing it in the best way possible. Still a lot of lessons learned.
Yep.
But from the very beginning, Aaron and I had conversations of recognizing that if we're really going to invite someone to join together, it's not adding a third, which is inherently going to already create a hierarchy.
So even before meeting Casey?
Even before meeting Casey, how are we going to demonstrate that we are 3 separate individuals coming together to now create a brand new three-way relationship? It's not going to dismiss or take away that we have our dyad relationship of 20 years. That's you can't change that, but we have a brand new relationship and they have a brand new, and then obviously all 3 of us together are brand new. So that's all from the beginning, the get-go, to establish things even as silly as our schedules. We used to get up at 4:30 in the morning and go to the gym every morning early, and she's not a morning person, and so
I feel you, Casey.
What time to go to the gym, or snuggle mornings are just as important, or how much we balance healthy kale eating food with ordering pizza. I mean, everything from what was our life became what is our 3-way now life, and renegotiating. But there were situations that didn't go so great early on in the relationship. And those were trivial things that we're talking about, but obviously we're just talking about how we purchase houses together and how we do things to try to bring as much equity into the relationship. But early on, when we weren't out, we hadn't disclosed our relationship to everyone. We actually went to a wedding of someone that Casey was friends with, that we were going as her roommates ultimately, so friends of Casey's who were in a marriage together, but we acted like that. We acted by holding hands together or being able to kiss, and she couldn't engage with either one of us or all together. And it's just second nature. It's just how we showed up. We came as the couple of friends, right? But how that made her feel was crap and so sad, and it ended up just bringing, I think, awareness and attention to all the little things and nuances that you don't even recognize could be inherently a privilege.
And like in my previous relationship, it was also with a married couple, and like there were things like I never slept in the middle, or I didn't sit in the front seat, and like things like that. And it was it was wild. And it was like very much like, oh, like, this is our marriage and you're like a guest. That's really how it felt. And so, like I said, we've learned a lot. Come a long way, but it's thinking back on that. And so I also think that, because of that, like I was pretty hyper aware of some of those things. But at the same time, like Rachel and Aaron were always super receptive to hearing me out whenever I had some like insecurities around some things like that. And they did a really good job at just like, altering or reassuring or whatever really needed to happen for, us to get into a good place. And then I think after we came out, it really like after and it wasn't immediate. Like we were pretty Yeah, like we didn't tell anyone for a year. They were the best roommates ever. We just like bought a whole house together, so no big deal.
It's a good business decision.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And so, but I feel like once we came out and we're fully open, a lot of that goes away whenever everyone's pretty aware, and so I think it kind of writes itself, but it's not something that is kind of instantaneous.
If you're intentional about that.
100%.
And I work with a lot of people that don't want that, and they absolutely want to maintain a primary relationship, and they want to have that privilege. And I don't think that's inherently wrong either, as long as it's communicated and everyone going into it knows
absolutely
that you're coming and being a part of in whatever capacity they're able to give, willing to give, wanting to give. And if you want just to have some play experiences or have something that's casual or a comment partner that comes and goes, good, there's a place for that for all kinds of people. You just have to be very honest.
I think that's really important, and I love how clear you guys were in your profile looking for a third partner, and that you had those discussions with each other ahead of time that like we're going to really have to let go of like our existing relationship in some way. So I'd love to kind of hear like what was that like for you two, Rachel and Aaron, to kind of like let go of like we're a monogamous hetero presenting couple and be in this very different structure, and like was that hard to let go of any of that?
No, I mean I don't think so. I don't know. It's like I feel like smaller things have changed in life, right? Like, eat pizza a little bit more, get up a little bit later, stuff like that.
He's avoiding the depth of the question.
I think he is. Let's go to the therapist.
What say you, doctor?
I think it was, and I think sometimes I still actually struggle with it. And I actually wrote an article not too long ago, even after our ceremonies, and that we're going 4.5 years in the relationship by the time we did this commitment ceremony wedding to really,
which I want to hear more about that too.
Societal expectations is the pinnacle, right, of showing demonstrating and showing commitment and love. And even after that, to say now I have a wife.
Yeah.
I have a husband. I've always had a husband. That came so easily, so naturally after my first wedding in 2006. And then anticipating it, going into it, having been in this relationship for 4.5 years, and now I have a wife. Inherently, it's just still awkward. It's those deeply ingrained beliefs that I've always been told or taught to believe. How can I have two spouses? I understand we're not doing anything illegal. We're not polygamous. It's not, you can't be married to two people, but we're trying to change that, and ultimately I would have, right? And so it's scary. I mean, I think part of that mindset is understanding that you are sort of disentangling, or we're not doing like unconscious uncoupling because we are still a couple. We have that, but we are separated enough to know that anything could happen. And we have this intentions of none of us going anywhere, and we have this intention of building a relationship, but who knows if I would have somehow been affected and not wanted this anymore, or he or she, right? And so I think there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of what ifs, and a lot of what does that mean. And I think the inherent nature of what we had as a heteronormative monogamous couple has changed, and we don't have the same space to just be us and do what we did as two people, because there's now 3 of us. And so it's like grieving and mourning maybe the loss of what was, but also recognizing what has been gained and value. And just,
I think it's brave because it's like you are leaving kind of the known for the unknown. And obviously it's worked out pretty well so far. So that's awesome.
I'd say
so. Tell us about, because again, I kind of know the background of this stuff, but tell us about proposing again for you, Aaron, I guess.
Well, there's 2 of them. Yeah, unbeknownst. So, for me, I thought it was really entertaining and fun. The first one, I was young, I was super nervous. It was kind of one of those things. Went through the whole rigmarole, if you will.
You're talking about just me.
It's just to Rachel, yes. Yeah, the first one. So, we got married when we were 25. The second one, I mean, I thought it was fun. We did a escape room, and Casey had no idea, and the ring popped out as part of the last clue at the very end. But so for me, what was super entertaining also was watching Rachel go through it, because she was so nervous. And like, this is the first.
You never proposed before, Rachel, so that's kind of cool.
Right. So Aaron and I did this together. Yeah.
I love that.
I saw. I'm a veteran. Like, I've done this before.
You're like, let me help you, honey. Here's how you do it.
Yeah, she did an amazing job.
Yeah. But it was something that I always actually had an interest in, and even going back to days when Aaron had proposed to me, I was like, why is this something that the guy has to do? Why is this such a norm? Even from that time, I remember thinking, why couldn't I have been the one to do it?
Absolutely.
But I didn't. I enjoyed the proposal, but I was super excited to be able to be on the other side of that this time around.
That's
so
awesome.
I got to do it with Aaron for Casey, and then we got to do it to him.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Like, everyone should get a proposal.
Know that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was last October. So we were, was it October? September. It was a couple months until we were actually, like, we had the whole ceremony planned and whatever. But we were having the conversation, Rachel and I, and we were like, wouldn't it be cool if, like, we proposed to Aaron? Because he's the only one who hasn't, like, gotten an official proposal.
So cute.
Yeah. And so we were in Colorado visiting family and actually attending another friend of ours' wedding. And Rachel and I, we were like, oh, we should go back to, like, the first restaurant where we met. That's obviously we told Aaron, I was like, oh, I have this great idea. Like, let's just go do this because we haven't done that. We haven't ever been back. And so, Aaron had no idea that we were going back there. And then, Rachel, we had gotten rings. We have his formal ring and his party ring. So
love that.
but we both had a ring and
so
we did
cute.
the whole thing where we also got down on our knees on the street.
I don't think many people have seen two girls get down on their knees in front of a guy.
This is a very unique scenario.
Yup.
Got a lot of looks.
I would say there's a lot of jokes behind that one, but
oh yes,
we digress.
See where you're going, Casey.
But it was
a sex show.
It was
fine.
great. Yeah, but it was really cute, and I think he was really surprised, and it was a fun thing too. Like Rachel and I are like practicing our lines and stuff.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
It was fun.
It just came full circle. We all got it.
I know. I love that too. And Casey, were you surprised when they proposed to you?
Oh yeah. So, and that's actually funny. So the proposal, because I was always like, oh, if they propose, like, I'm gonna know it's coming, because in no universe am I gonna like be like tricked into like getting my nails done or like dressing up for whatever. Like, I was like, I'm 100% going to know that this is a thing. And the way that they did it, I don't even like. It was the day before Rachel's birthday.
Okay.
And so we were going to this escape room for Rachel's birthday.
Oh, this
and
is
like
ideal.
the week before,
well done.
Rachel's like, oh, I want to get my nails done for my birthday. Would you like to come? And obviously, like, I have FOMO, and I'm like, of course I want to get my nails done for
obviously.
your birthday. And then we go to this escape room. We have our friends there and whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, but it's Rachel's birthday, so like this is great.
Yeah.
And then like at the end, and I was like, no universe did I see it coming in this. The drawer
She's very
pops out.
competitive. So
oh yeah, so I
can tell she like really
ready.
wanted to see it coming in a way.
I do. Well, I'm like, I'm ready to do this escape room. Like, we're gonna kill it. We get to this last clue, and I'm like standing there with these like pliers to like cut the wire or whatever to like make the drawer pop out. And I'm like, oh, like, does anyone else want to do it? And they're like, no, you do it. And so I did it, and it pops out, and I'm like, I like look around, I like grab the box, and I'm like, and I like move it.
You took it
like,
out of the way. Oh my God.
Yeah. And I'm like, here's the key. Go open
You're like,
room.
I won the escape room, everyone.
100%. And I turn around and there's like a camera and lights, and I'm like, it's not that serious. Like, it's just an escape room, guys. Like, go open it. And then the whole thing, I almost opened, and then I was like, what? And I almost opened the box, and Rachel like snatched it from me and was like,
oh God, this is hilarious.
Here we go. And so, yeah, and then they got down on their knees, and it was so sweet, and they said very beautiful words. I'm glad we had the recording of it, because
cool.
I never would have. I was like in such
I could
shock
see just blacking out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. They did a really good job.
Aww. I have to say, and I know your relationship isn't perfect, like you guys just seem like very exemplary though, in terms of like the communication and the intentionality and just, the clarity of your, what you're wanting to create together. So I just
we have the cheat code though. We do have the therapist that lives in the house.
I know, but like, even though we are amazing and therapists, it's like we're still
It's
human.
harder in your own. We are.
100%.
But I will attribute, and I tell my clients all of the time, we did weekly book clubs. We literally created intentional time for relationship check-ins, for conversations that we would come back. We actually had action items and follow-ups, what we were working on, dyads, all three of us together. From the very beginning, we started the separate, like 2 off dates.
Yeah, I want to hear about that too.
Yeah, and all these things that I think, even though it was hard, even though it was challenging, have led to us having the type of relationship.
Yeah, like all 3 of you were like committed to the process.
Yeah. And when you have all the time in your hand from COVID, you have the time to do it. So
That's true.
it really benefited us. But yeah, we do. We look at it as all 4 relationships. And so having basically every week we rotate. So last night was Casey and Aaron's date night. Next week will be mine and Aaron's. That'll be Casey and I. And every week we are very intentional about making sure to at least carve out that space, because we all work from home. We are always all together. But then we have the triad dates as well, and recognize that that's unique and different and separate. And things that happen just organically here and there by life. But
yeah.
And we've come to each enjoy our alone time too. When you're with 3 people, you
that's a good point.
Get to go do the things you want to do, that, you know, movies
I look forward to
other people don't want to
night.
watch or whatever. Yeah.
Ice cream with my BFF.
Yeah, that's right. I got to benefit.
Yeah.
That's a good point. You'd have less alone time with 2 partners. All living in the same house. Yeah. So you just kind of explain even more how intentional you guys are. What's the balance of sort of like the triad, the 3 of you all together, versus like the dyad relationships?
I think, to that point, it's definitely more the 3 of us, simply because of the amount of time that we spend together. It was actually interesting. Just last month, had 3 separate
work trips.
Thank you.
Trips
or vacations. So Casey left for a week, and then Aaron left for a week, and then I left for a week, and so we had a lot of sort of dyad 2 off times. That was really nice, and we appreciated.
That is nice.
I think we're going to start to create actually weekend getaways, or maybe other types of longer overnights, rather than just our sort of Tuesday 3-hour date nights that we do right now, because we recognize it is important, but it's harder to find that time spontaneously.
That makes sense.
It's not that we can't or don't want to or have rules around it, as much as it just happens to be the 3 of us more regularly. So
which seems nice, but I can see the desire for like more emotional intimacy just in the one-on-one time too.
Right. Yeah. And there are definitely things that like we do connect on in a 2 off, like, you know, Rachel and I will go to yoga classes together, or like do Zumba. And like Aaron and I are big football fans, and Rachel could not give.
I'm with Rachel on that one. I'm like, football. Sports ball, what?
Yeah. Fall is not Rachel's favorite time, but Aaron and I are like,
Rachel and I can get more ice cream in the fall.
100%. But yeah, so we definitely, and like, you know, there are nights that they cook things that I'm like, I'm gonna be over here not partaking in any of that. So like we definitely have like those 2 off things that are very unique to each of our relationships.
That sounds nice.
It is nice.
I think it's part of what works really well in our dynamic too, is Casey is kind of like, Rachel and I are very different in a lot of ways. And I mean, everybody is, but also Casey, I think, is kind of like an in-between, right? Like likes the sports side of things, likes the rom-com side.
I would argue that about all of us.
All of us, in a lot of different ways.
I can kind of see that about all 3 of you. Yeah.
Like if Casey hated sports and all the things that like I enjoy, and only liked rom-coms, and like Rachel, like it'd be like, what are we watching?
It'd be lopsided.
I'd be watching a lot of rom-coms.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so one of the questions that I got from my Instagram people are, do you have more threesomes or twosomes when it comes to the bedroom?
Pretty much. Well, probably more 3. It's pretty much
More 3.
Yeah, 3. For every like 1 3, there's probably like 1 2, but not
so
everyone's involved in that.
So 1/3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. right,
I think
there's
to the point around the
balance.
dates, only because
That makes sense.
just happens to be us.
We try
One
to
of the
keep
questions we get often is like, even if all three of us are here,
Yeah.
due to have experiences together.
Right.
And it always is available. It's an option. None of us are going to stop or prohibit that. I think it either turns into a FOMO situation, or even if it starts, so we always are welcoming. Anyone can participate, anyone can initiate or start.
Okay.
Or because we just live in a small house, and I think we're all sort of genuinely caring and concerning about everyone's feelings and needs, that it just doesn't happen as organically. But that's why
I could see that.
Space to allow
so it's more like if two people are like, hey, we're kind of in the mood, let's go get it on. You usually kind of like invite the third person.
For sure.
But then they might be like, I'm just not feeling it. Do you ever say like, I'm just not feeling it today? You guys go have fun?
So,
yes.
Okay.
I'm like, I'm going to sleep. Thank you. Goodbye. Like,
yeah. Like, have a great time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Or I'll be like a support staff. I'll be a fluffer.
I'll be over here. I'm here for emotional support.
So cute.
But it all boils down to communication and consent and being totally okay saying, no, not tonight or not today, or this is what I can do or want to do or don't want to do. And all of us respecting boundaries and appreciating that.
So healthy and amazing. Yeah. So with, I mean, you're not sounding very jealous. Like, it's just sounding very balanced, but like jealousy has to come up sometimes, right? Like, when does it come up? Do you all have different triggers? How do you manage that?
I feel like I keep talking over your everything. It's just
keep going.
I mean, I feel like, so especially now, we are 4.5 years into it. So like, I feel like jealousy is definitely really not something that we experience as much anymore.
Okay, cool.
Minus maybe like some one-off, like if someone's out of town and like the other two people are like at a beer festival or something, and that's like exciting. Like, it is FOMO, I would say, definitely more than like jealousy.
Okay.
You know, early on, I think that you definitely kind of have those feelings of jealousy. Again, it's like, it's a lot of it is just the FOMO, like, oh, they're doing this together and whatever, and like I'm left out, or you know, whatever kind of feelings arise. But I think that we, even really early on, we did a really good job at, you know, reassurance, addressing things like when people were feeling insecure or like, you know, that air of jealousy. I think that we were good about just facing things head on. And I feel like the more you talk through those things, it's way less like the big scaries of like, oh, well, they're falling in love and they're going to run off together without me. Like, it's not quite so like this big mountain of like jealousy. It's like you kind of chip away at it. And as you normalize talking about those things and those feelings, like, you know, at this point, it's just like, have fun. I'm going to go hang out by myself. Like,
it's like so secure. That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There's nothing to be afraid about. And this is, again, one of the biggest questions we always get asked, where people will say, I couldn't do non-monogamy because I'm too jealous. But when you just understand that I use the analogy all the time, it's like an indicator light on your car that goes off. It's just something that needs addressing. It's not that your car is broken. It's not that it's all going to crumble and break down. But you do have to address that, otherwise you might end up in that consequence, right? And so
I love that perspective. The jealousy is an indicator light. I'm going to steal that. Thank you.
Totally. It's coming out in my course, by the way. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But it is. And then at the root, is it insecurity? Is it fear? Is it envy? More of a FOMO situation that's actually not? Is it a threat? Is it perceived or is it real? And then addressing it, calling it to attention, communicating about it. Is it something that you need to do your own self-work and provide your own self-assurances? Is it a co-regulation situation where people provide support and reassurance for you? Do we need to change our boundaries and agreements? I mean, it's just getting curious and then figuring out what to do with it.
Yeah.
But not letting you.
That totally makes sense to me. I'd love to also hear from all three of you on like, what do you feel like are the biggest pros and cons of being in a 3-person relationship?
You want me to start?
Yeah, let's go, Aaron.
Okay. The biggest pros is triple income. I mean, that's a nice.
That's real nice.
No,
we've talked.
No
you know, you hear about dinks, dual income, no children. You're a twink.
Yep. So that's certainly a positive. Just a much broader range of things and interests. We always kind of say it's always a party, right? Like,
Love that.
things are never dull because there's Casey that brings things to the table. Rachel brings things to the table, different perspectives, different things to do. I think that I've become a better person for it as well through the communication.
That's
through
amazing.
A lot of these things as well. So I think that's certainly a positive. The negative, there's a lot of estrogen in this house. We have a female dog too.
Aaron's the most patient man.
It takes us so long to leave the house. I'm just sitting there ready.
That actually is true, though. He takes naps, and we're like, we're almost ready. And he's like,
God. You're like, okay, that means I have another half hour. Let's go to sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I love what you said about it, just like making you a better person. That's amazing. Like, are there any ways in particular that you feel like it's kind of challenged you to grow?
Communication. I mean, that's never been my strong suit. So I think learning to communicate and communicate effectively, because communicating and communicating effectively are two different.
They really
things,
are,
right? Yeah. So I think that that's probably done a lot. Patience. I've always been a pretty patient person, but I think I've worked on that piece of it
even more.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Well, and one thing about the communication part and kind of like one of those things that I think that we've always kind of joked about is we call it the asshole test.
Okay.
And, in a 3-person, say in a 2-person relationship, if you're having a disagreement, it's like me versus you, I'm right, you're wrong.
Right.
Like it's one or the other. Whereas like when you're in a 3-person relationship, you really can't like get away with being an asshole for no reason. Like you have another person. So it's not just me versus you. Now it's like, and we don't gang up on people, right?
Okay.
But it is like sometimes you do have like 2 people where you're like, no, like you're the one being the asshole. And then like you have to eat your humble pie and be like, yeah, that's me. And so I do think it just makes us better people because you're kind of held to a higher level of accountability when you have 2 partners. Like you can't just be like, I'm just going to be a jerk for no reason because whatever. Like
it's like if they're both giving you the same feedback, it's like maybe it's true.
You're like, maybe I do need to talk about this in therapy.
Yeah, and it may even, because I don't think any of us are inherently jerks. Or like,
no, you all seem really
I know,
nice.
no, for sure that. But there are times, and I remember, in a 2-person relationship with Aaron, that you feel so strongly about something, and you try to convince or persuade, and even with our best listening skills and trying to do things, at the end of the day, sometimes it's just agree to disagree. It does at least bring an additional perspective that sometimes does align with one of the others and helps you just kind of check yourself and say, okay, maybe there is an opportunity for me to do some introspection, self-reflection. Really, where am I hiding behind my own insecurities or fears? And this is an opportunity to grow. And sometimes you're just an asshole too. That's okay because we're all human. But
yes, I mean we're all assholes sometimes, I think. So just own it sometimes. Okay, so who wanted to go next with the pros and cons? Casey, you kind of started getting into it a little bit.
I mean, yeah, the pros definitely that Aaron brought up. Those are all amazing. It's always nice because you do always have, someone around to talk to or hang out with or, rely on. I do think it just like fundamentally being in this type of relationship, it makes you a better person. I would say, some of the cons that I personally am aware of is just like things like I probably will never be legally married or, filing jointly for taxes, which doesn't sound that fun, but like, whatever.
Does not sound sexy, I'll say that.
Yeah, those things. And I would also say, even though we are very open and we're out and like everyone kind of knows our story and whatever, we don't hide it. No, there are definitely still situations that come up that you really can't be as transparent. Like, if I'm at a work conference or something, like it's like, yeah, I could talk about, oh yeah, my husband and I watched this football game. Yeah. And my wife was, cooking dinner or something like it's like you definitely don't share as much about the things that maybe come naturally to people in a monogamous relationship, because it's like you, at that point, you make a decision where you're like, okay, am I going to just like spill the beans and talk about it like a regular person.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously open myself up to answering typically a ton of questions about this, which, and but like if you're at a work thing, like you don't necessarily want to have those conversations.
No, you're like, I don't want to do an hour-long interview right now.
And then it's like, the alternative is like, cool, I'm just not going to like share anything about my personal life. So I definitely think that that's, a harder thing in some regards, but I mean, truly the pros obviously far outweigh, and doing education and awareness type of things like the podcast and all this.
I know, I love that.
You guys are just like you normalize it, and then you don't have to feel weird about talking about it.
It's true. And I feel passionate about that too. Rachel, you mentioned the relationship escalator earlier. And, for people listening who are like, what's that? It's just like this idea that, there's a preset sort of social script of like, this is how relationships progress. And, you date and it's monogamous and it's a man and a woman. And then you go on to be committed and engaged and married and have children and a dog and a picket fence in the suburbs, and so any of us who have deviated in any way, I think, kind of feel that sometimes, but it's very exciting to me that people are starting to become more intentional and conscious, whether it's an open relationship or open, we also didn't get into this yet, but kind of closed polyamory versus open polyamory, and hierarchical polyamory versus, kind of,
and even just intentional monogamy.
Intentional monogamy, 100%.
Just be clear that you're doing it for your reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's so much monogamous people can learn about the intentionality. Like I was just interviewed for an article about, sex addiction and kind of porn and how that fits in, and is porn cheating? And it's like, and my answer was like, monogamous people rarely define this, like what is our agreement, And so I think that's a huge takeaway, that monogamous folks can become more intentional about, like, what is our agreement? What is cheating? What is not,
Yeah. And we joke about like, if monogamous couples communicated and put in the effort that we have in our triad relationship, like divorce rates would plummet. We would fix the
100%.
Like the world would be, there'd be no war. Like that's it.
I mean, maybe not. Honestly,
too busy being happy. They wouldn't have to worry about fighting.
I thought, it's like if you have that much love and affection and security, it's like really, lifting you up to be your best self in the world. But that doesn't get created by accident.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Everything you guys do is like what I prescribe to my monogamous couples too. Because it
Maybe
works.
We should talk to each other. Like novel.
I know. Right. Like make quality time. Okay. So another question that came in for you guys, and I think I know the answer to this one because I've seen your social media, is housework easier with 3 adults?
100%.
Well, no, technically 50% since there's an extra person.
This man works on
Aaron's the math nerd.
I am.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
So it's like, it is actually easier.
Well, yes and no. We got called out on our TikTok because we made a video about this. And we think it is. And ultimately, most things that you just generally clean the house, you have an extra person who's going to help and get these things done. However, you have additional laundry, you have additional dishes, you have additional things. So people are like, but is it really? We still think it's much faster, much easier.
Listen, we have a finite amount of toilets, and when you have an extra person to help with that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Some of it is finite.
And it's 100%. More fun, and we've really delineated who does what, and we just get in, get out, get it done.
Sounds so good.
Sunday. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe one day I'll be in a triad. You guys are making it sound pretty good to me. So, all right. Well, any last kind of parting words? And Rachel, tell us about kind of like what you offer for people who are in kind of unique. I know you kind of specialize a little bit in triads as well, but kind of all polyamory. So tell us what you offer and where people can find all 3 of you as well.
Awesome. Yeah, for me personally, my handle is at Dr. Rachael Meir Coaching. So
we will link to all of this.
It's a little bit long, but I specifically help people in all kinds of non-monogamous relationships, and it can be any sort of form fashion dynamic. And it doesn't even have to be polyamory or non-monogamy. If you're a couple or an individual just curious, excited to learn more, helping people basically explore this space without, I say, the fear of judgment, jealousy, or damaged relationships.
Love that.
So many people go into it blind and fumble around and then get hurt really badly. So if I can help set you up for success, or you've had some failed relationships but want to give it another shot, that's sort of what I'm here to do. Anywhere around the world.
I love that.
The three of us are, like you mentioned, at Triad and True, and we sort of just demonstrate and show people our lived life in real life, what we do, the things that we face, interact, questions we get.
And you guys have like very cute, entertaining content. So I will highly recommend that. And I also know, since we had ice cream last week, that you're working on a course. So we'll have to keep people posted. Can they like join your email list to stay tuned for that?
Please do. Yep. It's another long one. Rachel at drrachelmeir.com, but we can put it in the links. And
we will link to all of this again. Yes. Thank you guys all so much for being here. This was a really just like fun, I feel like heartwarming. Maybe people don't think of triad relationships as just wholesome and heartwarming, but I do. So I think you've probably reframed that for a lot of people today. So thank you guys for being here.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate you having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you everybody for listening. We'll catch you next Monday with another episode of Ask a Sex Therapist. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to the Ask a Sex Therapist podcast. Got a question about spicing things up in the bedroom? Find the answers you're looking for in my Dirty Talk Guide, a free resource for my podcast listeners. Grab yours now at heathershannon.co/dirty talk. Again, that's heathershannon.co/dirty talk. And be sure to tell your partner or friends, because everyone has something they would like to ask a sex therapist.